Good afternoon. This is News Hour at 2. I am Winifred Efum. The new boss of the National Commission for Civic Education is formally in office. The President, Nana Akufo-Addo, tasked the Commissioner to formulate policies for the consideration of government and regular programs at the national, regional and district levels to realize the objective of the Constitution as stipulated in Article 233 Clause C of the Constitution. When Ms. Kathleen Addy was sworn in, President Akufo-Addo said the Commission's role is now critical due to persistent calls to overthrow democratically elected governments.
Madam Kathleen Addy takes over from the former chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, NCCE, Ms. Josephine Nkrumah, who resigned and took up an ambassadorial position for ECOWAS in Liberia. Prior to her appointment, Madam Kathleen Addy served as a deputy chair of the commission in charge of finance and administration. She will see to the day-to-day running of the commission and provide leadership role of the commission and how to translate national and constitutional requirements of every citizen. After taking her oath of office, the President presented the instrument of appointment to Ms. Kathleen Addy to officially take up her role as chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, NCCE. Ms. Kathleen Addy said she is ready for the job ahead and to make Ghanaians alive to their rights and responsibilities under the Constitution.
I assure you, Mr. President, and all gathered here, that I will lead the Commission to fulfill its mandate, to execute its tasks, to undertake the functions as prescribed in the Constitution.
President Akufo-Addo charged the new NCC Commissioner to intensify its education work about the responsibilities of all Ghanaians to protect the country's democracy.
Since its establishment some 30 years ago, the NCC has done its part in helping Ghanaians recognize the importance of their freedoms and civic rights, even though it can still do much better in this regard. Despite concerns raised in some quarters about the effectiveness of the NCCE in the discharge of its functions, with some going so far as advocating for its abolition, I'm of a different opinion. I believe the NCCE continues to be relevant and still has an important role to play in helping establish a culture of awareness in our country, in which citizens are alive to their civic responsibilities and duties, especially at this time when some irresponsible elements within the body politic are calling for the overthrow of the constitutional order.
Ms. Kathleen Addy is a communication professional and an activist with specific interest in women's empowerment and good governance. She goes into her new position after serving as deputy chair of the commission in charge of finance and administration for the past 6 years.
The President, Nana Akufo-Addo, has formally opened the Edward Akufo-Addo Public Library at Frafraha in the Adenta municipality in the Greater Accra region. The library has over 270,000 books in variety of categories: IT corner, children's library, and 100-seating capacity conference hall, among others. President Akufo-Addo said recognizing the role his father played in the development of libraries is worth a befitting memorial. He said the expansion of library network, digital libraries, and the reintroduction of mobile libraries is a means to connect citizens to knowledge resources.
The Edward Akufo-Addo Public Library is the 49th library to be established in the last 5 years. It is a properly stocked reading facility and has a 100-seating capacity conference hall, a laboratory with 50 computers, boardroom, children library corner, and washroom facilities. The Ghana Library Authority says the decision to name the facility after the late President Edward Akufo-Addo stems from his contribution to the development of libraries in the country. The late Edward Ekufuado was a founding member of the Ghana Library Board in the 50s. He is also the first Ghanaian to serve as the chairman of the Ghana Library Board from 1957 to 1960. He also led the construction of the Dunkwao, Hohoi, Pando, Jaisikan and the Konongo Dumasi public libraries. The Edward Ekufuado Public Library is to help develop the reading habits of pupils in Adentan, Frafraha and surrounding areas. For the board chair of the Ghana Library Authority, Madam Helen Asamoah Hassan, this move recognizes those who worked hard to make reading a priority in Ghana.
Over the years, many individuals have supported education or library development in their communities and have been recognized through their naming of libraries after them as a result of their commitments to their development. Examples include DC Kwachi Library in Akim Odan, Nana Yauban Library in Kumasi, and many others. The naming of a library after distinguished personalities who have served this country and their communities is therefore not new in Ghana.
The Executive Director of the Ghana Library Authority, Mr. Hayford Siao, said the innovative means of reading will shape the reading culture of Ghanaian children.
For young people with reading proficiency, a variety of subject matter resources to expand their knowledge have been made available at our libraries in the country. Some skilling interventions have also been introduced, affording young people access to relevant skills.
President Ekufuado said the drive to establish more libraries across the country is to provide society with a getaway to culture and knowledge, as it plays a fundamental role.
Libraries have been described as the people's universities because of their ability to provide opportunities for lifelong learning for all. The introduction of the digital library, the provision of access to content through mobile phones, the increase in books on the shelves of libraries across the country, the renovations carried out on dilapidated libraries, the availability of internet and computers, the reintroduction of mobile library services, as well as the design of many other innovative solutions and programs geared toward making Ghana a truly reading and learning nation.
The Ghana Library Authority say they're expanding library access to Ghanaian students to develop their reading and learning skills.
Let's turn attention now to issues on roads. So it's been about a week of pain on the road on the Accra-Tema motorway, which thankfully is over. The stress is now reduced, and that is a huge sigh of relief for road users. At daybreak on Sunday, the Lakpakpa Bridge was open to traffic on Friday with a brief ceremony.
The opening ceremony following the fixing of the bridge was performed by the Roads and Highways Minister, Mr. Kwesi Amoah-Quattah, at exactly 6 a.m. It was a huge relief for road users to ease congestion along the stretch. It took the contractor 4 days to complete work. Mr. Amoah-Quattah is pleased with the outcome.
Let me thank everybody, particularly the motoring public, and all those who had to suffer some difficulties, pain, inconveniences, for the past 5 or 6 days. A lot of people had sacrificed for us to realize what we are seeing today. Either fortunately or unfortunately, the period of fixing the problem coincided with heavy rainfall.
He reiterated government's commitment to ensuring safety and ease of movement of citizens through road projects. Mr. Amoah-Quattah commended engineers, the MTTD of the Ghana Police, the Tema Regional Police Commander, and the Safety Authority for their contributions toward the project. The minister says it is now safe to use.
Everything has been done, it has been tested, it has achieved the necessary strength, and it has been testified by the excellent engineers in my ministry. Okay, and they have okayed it. That's why we are opening it to the public. Otherwise, we wouldn't have opened it, because we do not want to risk the life of any Ghanaian.
Reconstruction of the highway will start in August with up to 10 lanes and 4 new interchanges. Constructed with concrete slabs around the 1960s, the ECOWAS road has served as a major link for some member states. About 40,000 vehicles ply the 19 kilometers motorway each day. Even before the rehabilitation works, the motorway sometimes was congested from end to end in recent times.
Tema is recording new cases of bird flu, and some poultry farms in the metropolis have been affected. The metropolis has also recorded H3N2 subtype influenza virus in pigs. Some positive case of the virus has been recorded in humans in the Katamanso district. Our Tema regional correspondent Michael Dewono has been speaking with the Metropolitan Vet Officer Dr. Emmanuel Peku on this development.
Yeah, the Tema metropolis has recorded some new bird flu cases. There is also the case of H3N2 influenza virus recorded in humans in the Kpong district. We are here at the Tema veterinary office to have some interaction with the vet officer to give us some explanation to these new cases that we are recording in the Tema metropolis. Do we have an outbreak once again in Tema?
So for the past 3 weeks, we've had a surge in the influenza outbreak that has a bird flu, the H5N1. And we've had no less than 4 farms that have reported. In fact, there are more farms that we are yet to confirm the disease on their farm, though they have reported, but we've taken samples to Accra for a confirmatory test.
Yeah, but it looks like the case doesn't look like it's coming down or it's going away anytime soon. What should farmers be doing, or what should be done to make sure we deal with this?
Yeah, so the first thing that all the farmers and everybody should know in the country is that there is a global issue. It's not only in Ghana. We are having the outbreaks in US, the UK and other countries, Netherlands and all that. So in Ghana, we are having a very big challenge because of the attitudes of most people, farmers especially. Late reporting. Sometimes farmers don't report. They try their means. They try several means till the thing is getting out of hand before they report. Some too do report early, and once they report early, we take appropriate action. So I will encourage farmers that the disease is still with us, and we are having more cases. So they need to intensify their biosecurity measures. We are always telling the farmers that they shouldn't be visiting other farms, and they should be allowing other farmers also to visit their farms. However, when any bird dies in their farm, it should be of concern, because even if one bird dies, they shouldn't just dispose of the birds, because if the bird is positive for the influenza, that's the means whereby the virus is spreading to other farms, especially when we have the rains and it's flooding. If you just throw the bird, as the bird moves in the flood water, wherever it goes, and there are susceptible animals like birds, the virus attacks them and the disease starts. So we encourage that they ensure strict farm hygiene. They should also ensure that they report to us. Even if it's one bird, they should quickly report to us so that we'll do a post-mortem, and then if there's a need, we take appropriate samples for confirmatory tests to find out if it's the influenza.
The Energy Commission says it is seeking to obtain a legal mandate to help enforce the ban on the importation of second-hand household appliances into the country. The Commission says even though there is a law which bans the importation of some second-hand home appliances, the Commission lacks the legal backing to go after importers of such goods. It has therefore submitted a legislative the Energy Efficiency Standards and Labelling Regulation 2022 to Parliament for approval. The Public Relations Officer under the Public Affairs Unit of the Commission, Mr. Samuel Frimpong, mentioned this at a day's sensitization program for stakeholders at Ho in the Volta region.
Energy Commission says the country's appliances market is mostly saturated with high power consuming second-hand home appliances, and this is not good enough for the country. It says it is determined to make the country's appliance market more efficient, so dealers in such appliances must be willing to also change in that regard. The sensitization program was therefore to educate stakeholders on the implementation and enforcement of electrical wiring regulations, energy conservation and efficiency practices, among others. The head of the Public Affairs Unit at the Energy Commission, Mrs. Linda Mensah, urged the public to services of professional and certified electricians to wire their facilities to help protect lives and property. The Public Relations Officer under the Public Affairs Unit of the Energy Commission, Mr. Samuel Frempong, urged the public to look out for the Commission's certifications and yellow labels when purchasing brand new home appliances. He says, even though there is a law banning the importation of second-hand home appliances, such a ban is flouted with ease because the Energy Commission lacks the legal backing to go after people who import such appliances. He disclosed that the Energy Efficiency Standards and Labelling Regulation 2022, when passed by Parliament, would give the Commission legal backing to apprehend defaulters that import second-hand appliances such as refrigerators and air conditioners. And
the new regulations is going to also give us the mandate and chase those who are selling those items and then pick them, go and destroy it at their own cost. So the new regulations will put people to jail and fine others, or you'll be slapped with the both fine or jail.
World Refugee Day is observed each year on June 20 to honor the courage, strength and resilience of millions of men, women and children forced to flee their homes under the threat of persecution, conflicts and violence. It is also a day to draw attention to their plight and recognize the contributions of refugees in the various communities that host them. This year's campaign is on the theme, the right to seek safety. The core message is that everyone has a right to seek safety, whoever they are, wherever they come from, and whenever they are forced to flee. Madam Esther Kiragu, UNCHR country representative, joins us in the studio. Good afternoon, Madam, and thank you for joining us, especially as we look forward to celebrate World Refugee Day. Each year of the last decade, we are told that the numbers have been climbing up. What accounts for this increase?
Thank you very much for having me. Indeed, the numbers have been going up over the years, and in fact this year we've reached the highest ever. We're talking about 100 million forcibly displaced, both refugees and IDPs. And the reason for this is that there are new wars that have erupted over time. There are also old wars that have never been resolved, and they keep re-erupting. And we all know that some of the mass displacement is very recent, and especially the Ukraine that we know about, where about 7 million are internally displaced and just in the last 4 months, 6 million are refugees. So in total, we are talking about 100 million forcibly displaced, out of which 30 million are refugees around the world. And the rest are internally displaced persons and stateless people.
Right. So what do you make of the recent repatriation of about 1,500 citizens of Niger who were residing in Ghana?
Of Niger?
Yeah. Who were residing in Ghana. What do you make of the recent repatriation that we had?
Oh, it is. This is what we look for. It's actually very, very good news because as we are talking about numbers rising, it's fantastic that here in the region we have at least one situation where we found solutions for a protracted situation. This is the Ivorian situation, where people fled post-election violence 10 years ago, but finally Côte d'Ivoire has managed to consolidate its peace. The situation has changed, return home. So in Ghana here, majority are Ivorian refugees out of the 13,500. So the 1/5 1,500 people returning back to Cote d'Ivoire. It's fantastic news.
Right. But most times they leave and then they come back. What accounts for that? And how do we prevent such recurrence so we don't always put in resources, take them back, they come back? How do we prevent that?
Thank you for that, because it goes back to the fundamentals of who a refugee is, because a refugee is a person who has fled well-founded fear of persecution, as opposed to a migrant who wakes up and decides to go and takes up documents. These are people who fled for their lives. And they flee to where they find safety immediately. And so when we hear about people going and coming back, it really doesn't represent the truth. I think there is confusion between migrant and refugee.
Okay.
A refugee is a person who longs for the day they can go back home in safety and dignity, and when the doors open and they can return, they go.
Right.
But let's also remember that, for example, in the Ivorian situation, we're talking about ECOWAS citizens who are just across the border. They can come back as migrants, and not everybody, every Ivorian in Ghana is a refugee. Right. Some of them are migrants. So there's that confusion which we try very much to draw the distinction.
Right. Then let's turn attention to the war in Ukraine, and we are told that it has forced the largest displacement that we know. How dire is the global situation?
It's really, really, really bad. And you can see that situation has also had a major impact to all countries around the globe, whether it be food security, all manner of things. And so, you know, the people who are supporting, other than the countries of asylum, which, and normally it's those that are closest to the brand, the support we were getting from traditional donors now is stretched because of these new numbers. So we have a crisis in terms of resources, and the fact that situations have not found solutions is really in itself a crisis.
On the back of that, we have food scarcity. Climate change is around the corner there. We haven't even finished dealing with that. Hardship, people's means are being stretched. Do we have adequate funding to manage the refugee crisis? Do we?
No, we do not. We do not. But even in the backdrop of COVID-19, which affected everybody.
Which is still affecting.
Which is still affecting people, right. We have the international community, of which Ghana is a very active part of, have decided that the best way to deal with this displacement is to look at it as a developmental issue. So when we talk about sustainable development, let it include those who have been forced to flee wherever they find themselves, and include them. Is this whole agenda of leaving no one behind, that we include them as we deal with the hosts, because everybody is affected equally, because otherwise there'll never be enough resources to deal with situations in silos. It's about inclusion these days.
World Refugee Days are around the corner.
Yes.
Do we have any milestone that we will be celebrating?
Yes, yes, we do. The Ivorian situation, because it comes to a close on the 30th of June. From the 30th of June, all those who fled from Ivory Coast because of post-election violence will cease to be refugees, and that's half of our population in Ghana. But also to celebrate the resilience. 10 years of displacement in asylum is not easy, and to also celebrate the host. They've given them the chance to continue with their lives, children to go to school, and they can return back as wholesome citizens.
I'm happy you mentioned the host countries. Yes. What form of support are given to these countries?
In Ghana, I can speak for Ghana because I'm here. We've done a lot. Again, on the theme of inclusion, because Ghana's asylum policy is very inclusive, very progressive. They open the schools for refugees, they open the hospitals for refugees. So as UNHCR, on behalf of the international community, we bring development partners to help expand the schools so that they're able to absorb more children in host communities. Whether it's security, we build even accommodation for police, and especially to draw female police officers there. We've done a lot.
Right.
Hospitals, the same thing. So the hosts are not unhappy, I can tell you that for sure.
So what is the pledge for the World Refugee Day that we are hoping to celebrate this year?
To celebrate again the end of the Ivorian refugee situation, but also to celebrate their resilience. We'll be having a big event in Ampin refugee camp, where the guest speaker will be the Minister for the Interior, Honorable Ambrose Dairy. And I think it's great to celebrate an end of a long situation as the rest of the world grapples with these increasing numbers.
Right. Hopefully, we will be there to celebrate with you. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. And Madam Esther Kiragu is the UNCHR country representative, and she joined us in the studio to discuss the World Refugee Day, which we will be celebrating soon. Consumers of petroleum products have been urged to report use of adulterated fuel to the National Petroleum Authority when detected within 48 hours. At a media engagement in Bolgatanga, the NPA announced that measures are being put in place to address the occurrence.
The engagement was to equip the media in the Upper East region with the needed knowledge on petroleum pricing formula and quality. The training showed that transparency in fuel pricing and the value were key. The NPA believes that the acquisition of knowledge on the quality of fuel would help to counter misconceptions on the issue. The Director of Corporate Affairs at the NPA, Madam Mariah Okwe, said consumers should freely report issues of adulterated fuel at their regional offices across the country.
Now, if we do find that, yes, there is a problem with the fuel, it's affected the customer's engine, we will do the necessary investigations, we will go, we will test, and if there is a problem, yes, we will compensate the customer. At the same time, if the station is culpable, we will sanction the station. Sometimes we shut the stations down.
The head of economic regulations at NPA, Mr. Abbas Ibrahim Tasunti, said Ghana produces less petroleum products than they consume, and therefore the reason why prices of diesel and petrol continue to soar despite the fact that Ghana produces her own oil. He says the global market price also affects the local market price.
You see, if you compare what we own to what we consume, it is not equal. We own less than what we consume. We consume over 96,000 barrels, like I said, but we own only 27,000 barrels. So based on that, the share of oil we own as a country that cannot in a way influence the price directly.
The media, on its part, were dissatisfied with the NPA's effort to halt fuel smuggling to neighboring Togo and Burkina Faso. It, however, promised its resolve to help the NPA deal with perpetrators of adulterated fuels and smugglers.
You are watching News Hour live on GBC News and GTV. The Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly, in partnership with Mancomunitat de la Ribera Alta of Spain and the city country of Praia of Cape Verde, has secured 2.5 million euros from the European Union to implement a project dubbed Holistic Reinforcement for Sustainable Development. The project seeks to help the Assembly develop a strategic urban solid waste management plan. This was announced by the Kumasi Metropolitan Chief Executive, Mr. Sam Pine, at the first ordinary meeting of the Assembly in Kumasi.
Metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies, MMDAs, have a fundamental role to play to ensure the growth and development of businesses in their areas of jurisdiction, which consequently leads to job creation and generation of revenue for the assemblies. To ensure that assemblies deliver on this mandate, the Local Governance Act requires that chief executives of the MMDAs address their respective assemblies at the beginning of each session on policies and programs determined by the President, and also present a report on the performance of the assemblies as well as the state of the metropolis, municipalities and districts. The first ordinary meeting of the third session of the 8th Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly was therefore in fulfillment of the duty imposed on the MCE, Mr. Sam Payne, by the Local Governance Act. The indebtedness of the Assembly has and continues to be a major concern. At the time, Mr. Sampine took office as KMA Chief Executive in October last year. The Assembly's total debt stood at about 54 million cedis. So far, the Assembly has been able to reduce the debt stock by 9.6 million cedis and is pursuing the use of alternative dispute resolution to resolve outstanding court cases in respect of its indebtedness and negotiate with creditors for suitable payment plans. Giving a situational report on the various sectors interspersed with vision and proposed plans for their achievement, Mr. Sampine announced a project intended to address solid waste management in the metropolis.
The project will also establish a school for sustainable entrepreneurship that will help a wide range of entrepreneurs in Kumasi to develop capacity building, investments, and provision of seed capital will be facilitated to make it a reality, giving priority to the people at risk of social exclusion and the unemployed.
Mr. Samuel Pine also spoke on measures put in place to improve access to good sanitation.
We've done some major desilting around the city, where for years they've not dredged and all that. We've done all those things. It could be a possible reason why, on the onset of the rains, we've not had incidents of floodings, but we're still working on that.
From Kumasi, we head to the eastern region where residents of Achim, Topremang, Buedua and surrounding communities say they need help from the government to fix their bad roads and upgrade the over 60-year-old bridge over the River Mall. 6 hours of rain on Thursday brought to a halt all activities due to flooding that had taken over the main road. Farms were also inundated. Illegal mining in the area remains one of the factors for the flooding.
The mainstay of residents of Achim Topremang, Buedua and surrounding communities in the Denchamboa district of the eastern region is farming and small-scale mining. These communities are bearing the brunt of illegal mining and currently have switched to community mining introduced by the government to protect the environment and promote responsible mining. On Thursday, economic activities came to a halt after a 6-hour downpour. Most of the roads got flooded and many farmlands inundated by the water because the nearby river had overflown its banks. Commuters had a difficult time moving from one point to the other. Though some drivers managed to cross the flooded area, some got stuck in the middle and their engines filled up with water. Residents who could not continue their journeys had to be reimbursed by the commercial drivers. These school children were also stranded and could not make it to school. Some chose to observe the unfortunate scene from a distance, whilst others also decided to have their lunch whilst standing. Some residents shared diverse opinions on factors that led to the flooding.
So,
some NADMO officials were on hand to assess the situation and advised that all schools nearby be temporarily closed if the rains continue.
Small scale mining, any community mining, I'm more mining area, the internal Epaban. It's a no education. The move people on the ground, no Sana, a block of Juna, any idea in studio about or better and then a town. It told me a bastion.
River Mall, which used to provide clean water for drinking and cooking, is now murky for the negative impact of Galamsey. Some residents who spoke off camera say the situation compels them to buy sachet water for cooking and sometimes for bathing. They are calling on the government to also fix the deplorable roads in the area and improve on the drainage systems. Until that is done, residents fear some of the communities may be cut off, which may affect their livelihoods when the rains continue.
The Kumasi shoe factory in Atonsu Agogo has been gutted by fire. The area has been cordoned off. Our Ashanti regional correspondent Nicholas Asewusu joins us for an update. Hello Nicholas, good afternoon and thank you for joining us. Nicholas, are you there? We are trying to reach Nicholas Osewusu on the phone line to update us on the fire that we are told has happened at the Kumasi shoe factory in Atonsu Agogo, and he's going to tell us more about what has happened. Nicholas.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Nicholas. Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
We are finally through to you. Right. Obviously, this is going to be a traumatic time for workers and management. When exactly did this incident happen?
If you could come up again with the question for me to clearly get it.
I'm asking, when did this happen?
Oh, okay. It happened just before midday. That was about 30 minutes before midday today. And it happened not exactly within the premises of the shoe factory as being speculated. It happened at the premises of the Politan Ghana Limited. They manufacture the water storage tanks. They are normally what is used to identify with them is the black color polytanks. Yes, that is it. And so it happened that somebody who saw it and alerted the workers and the authorities of the company, one Opoku, a while ago I interviewed, detected the fire spark from the beneath the gas tanker that has just arrived from the source of the evacuation or the source of the gas they had brought to the premises. They deal with gas as their main source of energy. And so, before they could discharge it, fire had sparked from under the tanker. But it was this guy who is not a worker of that particular company. He was moving towards the company when he detected the fire. So he quickly rushed into the main factory and alerted everybody, every worker there, about what was likely to be the situation, the dangerous situation. So everybody also found the exit, and they all were able to leave the premises before the main explosion could occur.
So what is the status of the fire now? Have they been able to put it under control?
Yeah, they have been able to subdue it, such that all the fire engines, 5 or 6 that were commandeered from all the substations in the Kumasi metropolis, have now returned to their bases. As I was leaving, none of them was even available. Just about 5 minutes ago, when I was leaving, none of the fire engines was available except a skeleton of fire safety staff who were there. There were also some staff of the NADMO who were also around to ensure that the area has been cordoned to ensure that nobody tampers with any issue of or evidence, because that the area has now been classified as a crime scene and they are going to investigate. But what is important for now is that both the Environmental Protection Agency, the Fire Service, and the NADMO, they have all issued to the company to immediately suspend all their production activities until further notice.
Nicholas,
and then the EPA has also directed. Hello.
Yes, I want you to clarify this for me. So it is not the Kumasi shoe factory that was gutted, but a polytank manufacturing company. Is that what you are saying?
Exactly the case, but just about a street across the. Do I even say a street? Right. Yes, just a short distance.
So were there any casualties?
Between them.
Were there any casualties?
No casualty recorded so far. All the students or the pupils in the school that is very close by were safely evacuated before the main explosion. Courtesy the proactiveness of the fire service, who has deployed their public announcement van to alert everybody who is residing within the premises and close by to run to safety. So no casualty was recorded.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. It's good to know that there were casualties. Water supply challenges in schools and communities within the Yilo, Lower Krobo and Manya Krobo municipalities of the Eastern region are expected to ease. This follows the provision of 24 mechanized boreholes and 10,000-litre water tanks to those communities under the Sustainable Water, Sanitation and Hygiene project.
Agency, which is in charge of provision of water and sanitation services in rural areas, has pegged water supply in such areas at 63%. This means, on the average, majority of the people living in the rural areas have access to potable and improved sources of water for various uses, including prevention of diseases. Surprisingly, communities in the Yilo, Lower Krobo and Upper Manya Krobo municipalities of the Eastern region have severe water challenges which are affecting livelihoods and household activities. The 24 mechanized boreholes and 10,000-litre water tanks were provided under the Sustainable Water Sanitation and Hygiene SWASH project being executed by Growth Aid, a non-profit entity with support from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Charities. The package is expected to bring relief to students of Asesewa, SHS and Krobo Girls Senior High School in the Yilo, Lower and Upper Manya Krobo municipalities. Students of those schools sometimes abandon classes for long hours in search of water, and this affects their academic activities. Authorities of the beneficiary schools were grateful for the support. The municipal chief executive for Lower Manya Krobo, Mr. Simon Tete, was also thankful. Growth Aid, led by its chief executive, Dr. Joe Labingang, also donated a mechanized borehole, a water tank to the Asesewa Government Hospital to help address their water challenges.
We now bring you some pointers about malaria.
Good afternoon, welcome. Time now for the business segment, and I am Dorothy Ajimai. The National Exports Development Strategy Committee has been inaugurated in Accra. The committee is to provide direction to increase non-traditional exports from $2.8 billion in 2020 to $25.3 billion in 2029, as envisaged in the National Export Development Strategy.
National Export Development Strategy (NEDS) is expected to give a significant boost to Ghana's export volumes and values to the tune of $25.3 billion in 2029. $60 million is also expected to be invested annually under the NEDS to diversify and grow the country's exports. To ensure its success, the strategy document proposed a governance structure that will provide the needed guidance and oversight for the full implementation of the program. At the inauguration of the Sector Committee of NEDS, a Deputy Chief Executive of the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, Mr. Sam Daintu, urged the committee to be diligent in its work for the target-setting program to be met.
The work of the committee will be critical to the successful implementation of the strategy in the sense that committees are the technical arm of the ministry and GEPA in the implementation of the strategy. They would be expected to provide the necessary guidance, advice, and expertise, as well as concrete implementation actions within the sectorial value chains based on the various interventions outlined in the strategy.
A Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry, Mr. Herbert Krapper, said trade agreements such as AGOA and the AFCFTA provide a huge market potential for Ghanaian exporters to take advantage of.
There is the Inter-Ministerial Committee, which is chaired by the Minister of Trade, which sits at the top, that looks to supervising all the work that is going to be done. And then there's the Steering Committee, which also is made up of 13 members drawn from institutions in the export trade value chain, with the responsibility to consider and streamline technical issues, make recommendations to the Interministerial Oversight Committee, conduct advocacy, and coordinate critical inputs from institutional service providers. And then there's the Secretariat, Kiki's Secretariat, which is situated right here at GEPA and responsible for providing oversight on the overall implementation of the strategy. Among other duties, members of the committee are to monitor the implementation of the National Exports Development Strategy within their relevant sectors, ensure effective use of resources and inputs for the achievement of the strategy, and also provide advocacy for the strategy in all their activities.
We move to the Eastern region, where the Ghana Enterprises Agency and the MasterCard Foundation Young Africa Works project have presented startup kits to 439 young persons. Beneficiaries who were taken through a 6-month training fall under the apprenticeship to Enterprise A to E component. The Eastern Regional Court beneficiaries were from Ibuakwa South, Kwewu West, Suhum, Brim Central, Fantiakwa South, New Drabing South, Achimda, and Nsawamaduajiri.
Unemployment has been a major challenge for governments across the world. Even though young people make up 33.3% of Ghana's population, 12% of them are unemployed. The Young Africa Works project, an initiative of MasterCard Foundation, is being implemented by the Ghana Enterprises Agency, GEA, to train and mentor individuals as well as businesses to become entrepreneurs, to create jobs and aid the country's economic recovery post-COVID-19. Lack of capital and startup kits for entrepreneurs, business mentors, lack of access to market, and ineffective vocational and technical skills were cited as the main factors inhibiting entrepreneurship in Ghana. So far, 12,000 young persons across the country have completed their training under the supervision of well-honed, skilled craftspersons. In the Eastern region, the 439 beneficiaries have successfully completed apprenticeships in baking and confectionery, dressmaking, hairdressing, leather works, metal works, auto mechanic, general electricals, welding and fabrication. In 2020, the GEA, in partnership with MasterCard Foundation, launched the Young Africa Works project with the aim of assisting 39,000 young people to have access to dignified jobs. At a handing over ceremony, the chief executive of GEA, Mrs. Kosi Yankee Aye, said trainees who are provided with startup kits do better than those who don't have such tools to run their business.
Not only did we train them, we decided that we would also pay for them to go and register with the NDC to let them do the work. This is not the end. This is just the beginning.
The Eastern Regional Minister, Mr. Sethi Champo, said government recognizes how much skills acquisition helps to deal with unemployment, hence the attention on TVET.
Government recognizes that the youth are a critical human resource with global outlook that could be channeled for the national development agenda. It is therefore imperative for government and all relevant stakeholders to work together and implement more sustainable policies and strategies that will provide meaningful employment avenues for the teeming youth.
Some beneficiaries GBC News spoke to say that skills acquired would be put to good use.
It is through this that I have to learn something to add to my business, and my business is flourishing.
The exercise will be replicated in the Bono and Ahafo region. Still in the Eastern region, Pernod Ricard, world #2 producer of wines and spirits, has reclaimed a 9.5-acre abandoned open illegal mining site at Sejimase and planted 1,800 trees on the land. The effort, which was made in collaboration with Arocha Ghana, was part of the company's activities to mark Responsible Day. Planting trees and protecting the environment is Pernod Ricard's own way of giving back to nature, which is a major source of its raw materials.
The reclamation, this is what had become of this 9.5-acre land close to the Adensu River, a major source of drinking water in Sejimase, near Chebi in the eastern region. The illegal miners left in their trail toxic pools of water and destroyed farmlands. In line with the Jameson Irish whiskey producers' sustainability strategy, Pernod Ricard identified this pit, funded its reclamation and the reforestation project. The staff of the company joined laborers on site on the company's Responsible Day celebration for the tree planting exercise.
Responsible Day is a day where in the life of our business, everyone stops working globally. All employees leave their jobs and we all commit our time and resources to supporting our communities and our environment.
A nature conservationist NGO, Arocha Ghana, is a partner in this exercise. The company will see to the day-to-day monitoring of the site till the trees begin to take root. Per the laws of Chebi, the owner of this land loses ownership of the site due to failure to reclaim the land.
The sites you are seeing, we have about 9.5 acres and we are planting Ofram, Emre and Mahogany. There's also a Manzonia, but these are all native trees. The idea is that we want to encourage the native trees on the site and also to support biodiversity. And also it also helps the soil to regenerate and replenish itself. Ochehene has put in place a traditional edict where he has instructed that anybody who gives their land for mining and forfeits ownership of it if they do not go to reclaim it. So places like these, if it is reclaimed, then becomes a good place to actually demonstrate that when you restore, it can get back to its productive function.
Pernod Ricard, which owns 16 of the top 100 spirit brands, holds one of the most prestigious and comprehensive brand portfolios in the industry, including Absolute Vodka, Ricard Pastilles, Jameson Irish whiskey and Kenwood wines.
You're still watching the business segment of news. Let's have the interbank rate and some commodity prices.
It's now time for some